the comedy movie event of the year, Mike and Nick and Alice. Coming only to Hulu and Disney Plus this Friday.
Time to party.
That's a great attitude.
It's a time-traveling, ass-kicking movie event.
You sound insane.
Starring Vince Vaughn, James Marsden, and Asa Gonzalez.
I thought you were a clone.
Well, clones aren't real, dummy.
And time machines are super grounded in reality.
Mike and Nick and Alice. Rated R. Written and directed by Ben David Grabinski. Only on Hulu and Hulu on Disney Plus for bundle subscribers.
Refreshing wild cherry cola meets smooth cream. The treat you deserve. Pepsi Wild Cherry and Cream. Treat yourself.
Welcome back to another edition of the Disney Dish Podcast with Jim Hill. It's me, Len Testa, and this is our show for the week of Schmurz Day, March 23rd, 2026. On the show today, in news, a possible hint about Piston Peak's big ride, plus surveys and listener questions. Then in our main segment, Jim gives us the Disney park history of Bear in the Big Blue House. Guys, I am so excited. Let's get started by bringing in the man who misheard this week's events as Starch Madness and now wants to know if anyone needs mashed potatoes. It's Mr. Jim Hill. Jim, how's it going?
It is going well, Len. And again, I always love, traveling around the country, looking out the windshield of the car and seeing the official license plate for the state of Idaho with, world famous potatoes. And what's interesting about that, Len, is it dates back to 1928, got refined, refreshed in 48. And just last year, 2025, you could pick 6 different variations on Idaho's world-famous potato license plate. And I believe what they said at that point was, the buffet is now open.
Exactly.
Now, contrast that to here, my home state, New Hampshire. Live free or die. I mean...
Yeah, a little more intense there, isn't it?
Yeah, just whenever I'm out in traffic, I like being reminded that I'm surrounded by homicidal maniacs when I really want hash browns, potato au gratin, something like that.
Yeah, 2 different approaches to license plate sayings there. I know which one I'd rather go with.
There we go. Same thing here.
Awesome. All right, Jim, let's do a quick shout out to our subscribers. Thanks to everyone who subscribes over to patreon.com/JimHillMedia, including Michael Rennick, Andrew Chin, D. Lindsay 8973, Norman Tenbrook, Andrew Machuda, and Daniel Farrell. Jim, these are some of the nefarious characters you'll find in the Wizarding World's Nocturne Alley, where they practice their forbidden binding spells, necromancy, and the darkest of dark arts, mime.
Yeah.
True story.
Oh. Mimes.
All right, Jim, on to the news. Folks, the Disney Dish News is sponsored by UnlockedMagic.com. From our friends at DVCRentalStore.com, our friends at Unlocked Magic have discounted theme park tickets starting at just 1 day of admission at prices better than Disney's. So get your theme park tickets at UnlockedMagic.com, and you can see all of the new and updated attractions opening soon in Walt Disney World. And Jim, speaking of upcoming opening soon, cast member previews for Buzz Lightyear's Space Ranger Spin started last weekend. I have a preview tomorrow, Tuesday, and we'll report back for next week's show.
Cool.
Also, Victorian Alberts has promoted Matthew Sowers to executive chef of Disney's Grand Floridian Resort and Spa. So Miguel Santeliz, a 3-year veteran of V&A and 13 years with Walt Disney World, steps into the chef de cuisine role. I'm excited for that. And don't we have Michelin awards coming out again?
I think we're a month or 2 out, aren't we?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
I'm excited to see what happens there.
Mm-hmm.
Jim, over at Disneyland, I know we're going to talk about this in a little bit, but Bluey's Best Day Ever, a new stage show in Fantasyland, debuted yesterday as well. So we're going to talk a little bit in our main segment about the connection between Bluey and Bear in the Blue House, right?
That we are.
Super excited for that. Fair. Also, a couple episodes ago, we mentioned the Anaheim Transportation Network is shutting down at the end of the month. In Anaheim, I was emailing with one of our listeners, Liz, who pointed out that the ATN's ridership numbers work out to, Jim, get this, 22,000 more people per day needing transportation.
Boy. Okay.
I mean, that's a ton of cars, right?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay. And California doesn't need more traffic. Fortunately, our friends at Mouse Planet report that the city of Garden Grove and the Garden Grove Tourism Improvement District are launching a new shuttle service, ensuring continued transportation between the Garden Grove hotels to the Disneyland Resort. And in the show notes, I placed a map from Mouse Planet showing where those 10 hotels that are connected are. in relationship to the Disneyland resort. So that's good news for everyone who needs a ride but doesn't have one to Disneyland, right?
Yes. Now, a quick side note here. This past week when I was out in Southern California, Mr. Schul, our partner over on our Patreon project, Disney Unpacked, and I actually drove around the Disneyland resort and made a point of going over to where that new parking garage, the one that's supposed to service the folks coming up from San Diego on the 5, will be located.
Oh, really?
Yeah. And what was interesting, Len, is that as we drove around the service streets of the resort, we actually saw the backhoes doing foundation work for the Coco ride.
Really?
Yeah, it was almost as entertaining being outside the park. In fact, I won't lie, given we actually had air conditioning inside the car looking out as opposed to
way better. Yeah.
way
it was
better.
hot, right? It was hot.
99 degrees,
In March in California.
Can't even think.
I know. Can't believe. So Jim, where that construction is going in the sort of like upper right-hand corner of Paradise Pier, right?
Well, yes, but that's actually the ramp leading over to the park from the new.
Oh, right.
The parking garage actually is going to be on the far side of Harbor.
Right, yeah.
Closer to the 5, but very ambitious project. So far, nothing by way of earth moving or that sort of thing, but evidently the fact that Coco is moving as quickly as it is, be interesting to see where we are this time next year.
Yeah, I'm excited to see where that goes in. And that's going to be a decent-sized attraction too, right?
Oh, yeah. I mean, that... coming on the heels of Infinity Force. Going to be interesting to see what happens at that theme park when you have two relatively people eatery attractions added to the mix.
I think it's good for everyone. That'll be great.
Mm-hmm.
All right, Jim, over to Universal. We should start hearing more any day now about the lineup for Halloween Horror Nights 35.
Mm-hmm.
Have you heard anything about this?
I have not, though, again, just want to stress here that as part of my trip out west, Eric Hurst and I visited Universal Horror Unleashed in Vegas, and it was just kind of interesting to see a Halloween horror attraction done on a permanent basis. I mean, there was some amazing things that you can only do when your building's going to be there next week, right. Creatures flying overhead in the lobby. It was pretty cool.
Nice. Oh, that's fantastic. And you also visited a Mega Mart, right?
Yeah. And I now totally get why people who work in themed entertainment, whenever you bring up Meow Wolf, just blither, or for that matter, Area 15. I mean, there was so much clever, cutting-edge stuff there. Wow.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. I really liked it quite a bit. We'll have to talk about that more in an upcoming show.
Sure.
All right, and speaking of Universal, I'm hearing, Jim, and tell me if you've heard this too. Epic Universe is doing some maintenance on its portals right now to finish up the infrastructure for installing facial recognition machines in each portal, so that later this summer they can open up the middle of the park, Celestial Park, kind of like to be a city walk. Which sounds super interesting. But you and I talked about this before Epic had opened, right? That the design was there to be able to open up or close off individual sections of the park for various needs.
Oh, absolutely. And when you think about those really wide walkways or those enormous shops and restaurants just off of the main drag there, and not to mention the nighttime lagoon show with seating for 5,000. I mean, suddenly, the plan comes into focus, and that's really ambitious. I just wonder how you wave folks away from, it's like, I'm sorry, we don't recognize you. You can't come in.
Yeah, well, there's some operational issues to be worked out there, but I think overall it's going to be really interesting. And if they do that nighttime spectacular, that'll be all the more draw for people to come into to Celestial Park. So looking forward to that.
Cool.
All right, last bit of industry news: Disney Cruise Line's next ship is now known as the Disney Believe. That was an announcement made last week. And Jim, this is interesting to me because it seems to be the first ship using a verb instead of a noun. So the other ships are Magic, Wonder, Dream, Fantasy, Wish, Treasure, Destiny, and Adventure. I know that some of those, like Dream, Wish, Wonder, Treasure, can be verbs or nouns, but Disney marketing seems to use them as nouns. So that's interesting. Expected to sail late 2027. No word yet on a home port, but I was texting with a friend of the show, Scott Sanders, over at DisneyCruiseLineBlog.com, who said that in a recent board meeting for the city of Galveston, the port director said Disney's coming to Galveston full-time in 2027. And while he was talking about that, he seemed to be referring to the Disney Adventure, which we know is based in Singapore, so I'm not entirely sure about which ship is going there. My guess is that Galveston is not a big enough port compared to Florida to be getting one of the newer ships. I'm guessing the Magic or the Wonder.
I was about to suggest that as well. I mean, face it, this is about to become an issue that the older ships in the fleet being smaller, I think it'll be interesting to see which ship actually does wind up having Galveston be its home port. But yeah, I think you're I would bet good money on it being either the Magic or the Wonder.
It makes sense for seasonal departures out of Galveston, just like it makes sense for seasonal departures out of San Diego, especially if the Magic and the Wonder are doing Alaska during the summer.
There we go.
I just don't know that Galveston is a year-round port,
Yeah, you're not wrong.
All right, folks, on to surveys. Our friend Kelly sent in a DCL survey, and there were a couple of interesting things in here. Kelly writes in that says, survey questions I got include how you feel about your personal financial situation and the U.S. economy. There was also a question along the lines of, how likely are you to book if we give you an incentive of up to $800? And I like these questions because the state of the economy is a lagging indicator, which Disney can use to forecast the future, because we all know that people who are boarding ships today plan those trips many, many months, if not years ago.
Oh, true.
So knowing what you feel about the economy now helps DCL forecast that out years from now. And Jim, remember, we've seen previous questions in DCL surveys asking if a 30% discount would have got you to book today. And I like this $800 question because when you talk about a 30% discount, that requires people to do two math calculations in their head. But $800, the absolute number, only requires one. And we know that simplifying math for the general public is always a good idea. So I'm wondering if this is just a different approach to Disney asking the same question.
I could, I seriously think, that is, folks in marketing, just refine the question. I need a real answer here before we put together our.
Yeah, because if they get different answers for 30% versus $800, but it turns out that that's the same amount on average.
Yeah.
Right. That would tell you something about how to communicate the value of your discount. So I like that question a lot.
Same thing here.
Also, Jim, I got a Walt Disney World survey after visiting the parks last week, and there are 4 questions that I want to highlight here. One is around how much I spent on each of the individual elements of my trip to the resort. So it asks for things like theme park parking, food and bev, transportation around the resort, and then Lightning Lane multi-pass, single pass, premier pass, and then other expenses. And then the other question right after that was, which of the following, if any, did you do to make your recent trip to the Walt Disney World Resort more affordable? And it includes things like booked a discount, reduced the number of days I spent. I drove instead of flying. I visited during a cheaper time of year. I changed my resort. I spent less on food and bev. I spent less on shopping. I spent less on non-Disney things. I spent less on Lightning Lane, and I spent less on add-ons. And again, Jim, I think we've talked about similar questions before, but this tells Disney how much of my vacation dollars for things like Lightning Lane are new revenue versus just shifting money from one pocket to another, right?
Yeah, and I applaud them checking into that because, face it, we've talked about, what's happening, for example, with many of the sit-down restaurants at the parks, just that people seem to be opting out of that in lieu of the immediate gratification of, hey, I can get on this ride now without waiting 2 hours.
Yeah, it makes Disney acknowledge whether people are more interested in food or in waiting less in line. So that's super interesting. The other question that I got, and I thought a bit about this, and this is why I wanted to put it in the show. The question is this: please indicate the extent to which you agree or disagree with each of the following statements. And one is, our visit to Walt Disney World was a relatively hassle-free or carefree experience. Our visit to the Walt Disney World Resort allowed us to escape and leave worries behind. Walt Disney World is a place I feel welcome, and it's a place for people like me. And I like those questions as they are. But what I'd really like to see here is, for the last place you visited that wasn't a theme park, what would be your answer to those questions? Like if you went to, New York or Miami or, Los Angeles, right? Was your trip there a relatively hassle-free, carefree experience? Were you enabled to escape and leave worries behind there, right? So we need a comparator, right? Otherwise, you're just getting this in absence. Like, are the people who are saying, this is a hassle-free experience, is everywhere they go a hassle-free experience? I guess the question is, as compared to what?
Yeah.
In this question, right?
Yeah. I mean, our visit to the Disney World Resort allowed us to escape and leave worries behind.
Right.
That's kind of interesting in a world where we go everywhere with our cell phone. Just
right.
It's like
So like what kind of trip would do that, and what kind of trip wouldn't? Like if you're going to Yellowstone National Park, right? I could see how you could answer yes, strongly agree to that, right? But what about if you went to like Toronto or Vancouver or any major city? What's the comparator? I guess that's my question there.
All right. Let's see if someone inside the organization steps forward with a little info about that, that set of questions.
The last question I want to highlight is this one. It says, for the 4 days you used Lightning Lane Multipass, when did you purchase it? And your options are, I purchased them all prior to using them. I purchased all for the day that I used them. And I purchased a combination of in advance and day of. And the same question for Lightning Lane Single Pass. And I like this question for a number of reasons. The first one is this. If I said I'm buying it day to day, and I'm still buying it day, so if I didn't buy it in advance and I still bought day of 4 times, that tells Disney that every day you asked yourself after you used it, was it a good value for money? And you answered yes 3 times, right? Because if you used it the first day and then stopped buying it, right? Then that tells Disney you didn't think it was worthwhile or it wasn't needed for everywhere else you're going. But if you continually bought it the day of your visit because you had a good experience the day before, that's an important piece of information for Disney to have, right?
Oh, yeah. Especially if you factor in dynamic pricing. Oy.
Right. That's the other thing, too. Like, yeah, if you're buying this day of and you're always buying it day of, like that enables Disney to do some amount of dynamic pricing. And I think this tells them what the market is for dynamic pricing if they were to do it day of.
I agree.
Because that for tickets, right? If you were to buy a multi-day ticket in advance, it's a different price and it's cheaper than if you were to buy it day of, like when you showed up at the gates. I think there's a $20 surcharge for buying the multi-day tickets at the gate. So they could do the same thing with Lightning Lane, right? They could just add $5 to the cost if you're buying a day of in the parks.
That certainly makes sense.
Or, frame that as a discount or whatever, right? All right. On the listener questions, Joe writes in with this question about booking Walt Disney World hotel rooms. He says, my parents were on a trip last week, but their flight was canceled. I tried to book a Walt Disney World room for them for 2 nights. The Disney website showed nothing available. I started a chat with a cast member. I explained the whole situation, and they also told me that there were absolutely no rooms available that night. Then later that day, 15 hotels had availability. Is it really possible that every single hotel room in Walt Disney World was booked in the morning and then not booked in the afternoon? And so I was emailing with Joe as he was doing this. I'm like, chances are no, that all the hotel rooms were not booked. What I think is happening is this. The reservation system is designed to hold back rooms for people looking to book stays longer than 2 nights, because that gets Disney more revenue. And it also prevents, so it prevents the night over night map of hotel room occupancy from looking like a block of Swiss cheese, then you can't sell the holes, right? So imagine a scenario where there is 1 hotel room open for 5 straight days. If you booked 2 of those nights, then anyone who comes later and wanted to book all 5 nights would be out of luck. But that would leave Disney to either get lucky with someone who actually needed the other 3 nights, or some of them would be unsold, right? So they wait as long as they can to sell as many big blocks of rooms as they can, and then they release everything else at the last minute. And I think that's what was happening here for Joe.
Okay, that makes sense.
Yeah. All right. Last week's show, I asked whether Great Movie Ride was unique in having guests get different ride scenes, the gangster and the Old West scene in this particular case. A bunch of listeners, including Craig, Andrew, and Jeff, and more, pointed out that Radiator Springs Racers in Disneyland has 2 separate scenes for the side-by-side cars. That's the new... Right, the new paint job scene. Yeah, and the pit stop scene. Yeah,
Okay.
Good job, guys. Also, Jeff added that at the Indiana Jones Adventure in Disneyland, it starts off with one of 3 doors, youth, riches, and knowledge, though that's done through effects rather than physically altering the vehicle's path. Fair. And then a bunch of folks pointed out that in Walt Disney World, the old Mr. Toad's Wild Ride had 2 separate experiences, kind of like Space Mountain. So
Yeah, okay. All right. I appreciate folks pointing that out.
that's good. Michael wrote in with this. He says, my question is regarding the announcement that Soarin' Across America will open on Tuesday, May 26th. It seems like an odd choice, being that the day before is Memorial Day, a distinctly American holiday. Why wouldn't it open that day instead? We're planning to be in Epcot on Memorial Day, since May 25th is actually our daughter's 21st birthday, and that's when she wants to purchase and have her first, quote, legal drink, which I take as a sign we're raising her right. We fly back home the next day on the 26th, so switching up plans isn't an option. And so, I mean, Jim, weigh in here, but I'll be really surprised if Soarin' Across America isn't open for previews at some point during Michael's trip.
Oh, yeah. I mean, now, mind you, I mean, it makes perfect sense for the press event to be on a Tuesday. I mean, just having those folks there in what should be a lower attendance day at the park, especially after a 3-day weekend. But I would honestly be surprised, especially with a film-based attraction like this, that we're not a week, 10 days out, and suddenly seeing the new ride film, just them throwing open the doors to get people's reactions.
Right. And you mentioned a press event. I haven't heard anything about a press event for Soarin' specifically, but I don't doubt it. It's just we don't get invited to those things. So
You wouldn't be involved.
yeah, that's right. So they may close Soarin' Across America early on the 25th to prep if there is a press event, but I haven't heard of anything yet, and so it's possible that it's open, for the morning and into the afternoon. But Michael, I would say if you have any time to check by Soarin' on your while you're there, go ahead and do that. Maybe ask some cast members too. But I think there's a decent chance something's going to be open for you. Yeah.
Okay.
All right. Our friend Mark, who's contributed some of the ideas for our subscriber acknowledgments, sends in this for Villains Land restaurants. He says, any restaurant in Villains Land needs to be a fixed price menu and super popular as much as Beauty and the Beast. I think a magical party in a castle courtyard, always at night, surrounded on all sides by Villains Land, could be more popular than Beauty and the Beast and still be totally family friendly. You could make it look like a castle courtyard lit up at night, decorated for a party, but actually inside maybe an animatronic Mickey in and out of the balcony, so he's always present, and the live Disney characters and villains down below. You've got a festive party, different and surprising Disney characters, and a villains mix. It would check a lot of boxes. And Jim, I mentioned this. Number one, I love the idea of an always at night, restaurant, but we haven't really talked about or discussed how Mickey Mouse exists in a potential Villains Land. Like, what is Mickey doing there? Is he trying to save people? Is he scared? Did he lose his way? Like, what's the story and how is his visit resolved?
One would hope it's not a rerun of him in Fantasmic. Oh no! Just sort of.
Hope not. Yeah.
There we go.
Yeah. Last question is from Kevin, who says, actually, has 2 questions. One, do you think Tropical Americas will incorporate any live animals native to the region? I haven't seen any discussion about this, but I think it's unlikely based on the current announcements and information about the land layout. And then the second question is, can you discuss how leadership views the animals or zoological components of Animal Kingdom today? Based on your recent discussions of Villains Land, the measures of success for any new land seem to be profitability. So as such, I imagine it's hard to justify a new capybara enclosure when a drink stand will do. How does Disney factor the animals into the financial analysis of the park? So first question, I have not heard anything about a substantial animal exhibit in Tropical Americas. As a refresher, I've posted in the show notes the South Florida Water Management District plans for Tropical Americas, showing the location of buildings and structures. I think we've identified everything in there as one thing or another, and I don't see anything obvious for a big animal enclosure, but it is possible that they could have something small and temporary for animals that don't need to live there overnight, or birds. Birds are always possible, right? I don't think plans show anything that would support a permanent living space for anything of size, though. What do you think, Jim?
What I have heard is going forward. In fact, this gets kind of interesting when you factor in the Oasis, which still has animals in enclosures up there. But the attitude seems to be for the front half of the park, to the effect of no live animals. That if you go deep into Asia, deep into Africa, those will still support animal-based attractions. But they really evidently going forward once Tropical America get turned on. The idea here is that the front half of the park can finally actually stay open till 9, 10 o'clock.
Right. Yeah, because we know that the safaris isn't going to do that, right?
No, not at all. Again, Disney did its experiment with the nighttime safaris, and that's in the rear view now, folks. In fact, that this tells you a lot about the fact that, as Len just mentioned, when you look at the site plan for the Tropical Americas, there's just, there is no contingency made for this is the route the animals take back to the barn or, that sort of thing. So, in fact, for me, what was intriguing is even the animals that can, exist in a relatively small space, like, the crocodile that was there forever in Dinoland USA. That those sorts of exhibits are gone. I mean, that's just not what this part of the park is going to be anymore.
Right. And I think it makes sense for there to be no animal enclosures if that part of the park is going to be open till late. I'd love to see the Animal Kingdom open till 8, 9 o'clock at night. Yeah, I think that would be fantastic, but you have to take the animal welfare into account. This gives Disney the opportunity of keeping, Pandora, Dinoland, parts of Discovery Island, maybe parts of Asia open. I don't think you can do Africa because of the Gorilla Falls stuff and everything back there. If you can't do the safaris, there's really not a lot going on.
No.
But I think, half the park open at night is a good thing.
Yeah, I agree. And again, I don't know if we're at liberty to discuss what's being considered for the old Rivers of Light space, but, if they go forward with that would certainly help, support a nighttime program at Animal Kingdom.
Right, that would make sense too. If they wanted to do something like that at night, you would not want to add more animals anywhere close to that, especially if you're doing fireworks or lasers or loud music, right?
There you go.
Valid. All right, Jim, last little bit before we move on to the main segment. Our friends over at wdwmagic.com found a U.S. patent application from last week titled Ride System Featuring a Free-Range Vehicle Platform. And, Jim, if you look at this, it looks to be cars who are able to weave in and out of different lanes of what looks to be a track with obstacles in it. And this, for all the world, looks to me like something that they could do over at Piston Peak for the main ride, right?
Yeah, I mean, what's intriguing about this is if you look at what's sketched out in this patent thing, I can't help but see what look like speed bump like things, like say if you were rolling over some fallen logs, likewise some holes in the ground that suggest a geyser field that perhaps as you're traveling through that space.
Oh, good. Yeah.
So, yeah, I mean, face it, we are dealing with an information drought so far in regard to Piston Peak, which is why this year's D23 Expo out in California can't get here soon enough. In fact, have we heard anything about the tickets going on sale for that yet? I keep looking and heard nothing.
No, this is it's August, right?
Yeah, but normally for the expo by late winter, early spring, I mean, it was like get your 4-day passes now before they sell out. So
right, yeah, I haven't heard anything yet, but we should go because I think this one is going to be it's the first one where Josh is in charge of the whole thing, right?
Yeah. And again, he wants to make a good first impression. So let's see what happens.
And the interesting thing for me in looking at this patent was when we originally heard about Piston Peak, there was talk of it being a trackless ride. And then we had heard that for budget reasons, it may be a tracked ride. sort of like Radiator Springs Racers in California. But this would indicate it's trackless again.
Yeah. So I would just like a definitive answer here. At some
because if
point.
it's trackless, that's going to be really, really spectacular. I mean, it has the potential to be a fantastic ride. And anything you can do to provide more interactivity, a little bit more guest control over the experience, that's almost always a good thing. So I think that's fantastic.
Yeah. So let's see what we learn.
All right, folks, we're going to take a quick commercial break. When we come back, Jim starts on the Disney park history of Bear in the Big Blue House. We'll be right back.
This episode is brought to you by Redfin. You're listening to a podcast, which means you're probably multitasking. Maybe even scrolling home listings on Redfin, saving homes without expecting to get them. But Redfin isn't just built for endless browsing. It's built to help you find and own a home. With agents who close twice as many deals, when you find the one, you've got a real shot at getting it. Get started at redfin.com. Own the dream.
LifeLock, how can I help?
The IRS said I filed my return,
but I haven't.
1 in 4 tax-paying Americans has paid the price of identity fraud.
What do I do?
My refund, though.
I'm freaking out.
Don't worry, I can fix this.
LifeLock fixes identity theft guaranteed and gets your money back with up to $3 million in coverage.
I'm so relieved.
No problem. I'll be with you every step of the way.
1 in 4 was a fraud-paying American. Not anymore. Save up to 40% your first year. Visit LifeLock.com/podcast. Terms apply.
Experience a membership that backs what you're building with American Express Business Platinum. Unlock over $3,500 in business and travel value annually with statement credits on select purchases from brands like Dell, Hilton, and Adobe, and other benefits. American Express Business Platinum. There's nothing like it. Based on total potential value of statement credits on select purchases and other benefits, enrollments required, monthly and other limits and terms apply. Learn more at americanexpress.com/business-platinum.
And we're back. All right, Jim, I am super excited about this topic because when Hannah was young, we watched Bear in the Big Blue House religiously. And I am happy to say that I cried during the live viewing of the last episode. I thought that show was fantastic. I thought it ended super well. I loved everything about it. And so I'm excited to hear what you have to say.
Well, and what's interesting is that it's Disney's experience with Bear in the Big Blue House that's actually coloring what's going on right now in regard to Bluey. And by the way, Mr. Schul and I think I mentioned earlier in the show, we were at Disneyland this past week, and we were recording a new walk around of the park for Disney Unpack, but we were actually standing outside of the Fantasyland Theater, where the techs were getting ready for the opening of Bluey's Best Day Ever, which I think you just mentioned, opened this past weekend. Is that correct?
Last weekend, yep.
Okay. Now, East Coast fans of this blue heeler, which is the type of Australian cattle dog Bluey is, we've got a little longer to wait. Bluey's Wild World, that doesn't open till May 26th, right? So
May, right? Yeah.
Okay. And by the way, for those of you who are new to the whole Bluey phenomenon, this animated series initially debuted on Australian television back in September of 2018 and just exploded. And to give the Disney company credit, they quickly reached out to Bluey creator Joe Brum. He's the one who dreamed up this show built around the, now 7-year-old Bluey and her 5-year-old sister Bingo, which is why this animated series began airing on Disney Junior just 1 year later. In fact, September 1st, 2019. And since then, Len, Disney has been moving aggressively to increase Bluey's overall, footprint at the Mouse House. For example, December of 2024, we learned that Bluey and Bingo would debut as onboard entertainment on the Disney Cruise Lines. In fact, that early 2025, with appropriately enough the first of the cruises sailing out of Australian ports. Then September of last year, again 2025, we learned that Disney would be releasing globally a feature-length Bluey film, still slated to hit theaters August 6, 2027. And then December of last year, again 2025, we learned that about the two Bluey experiences. Again, the Bluey's Best Day Ever, which just opened at Disneyland Park, and the one that will be opening at Animal Kingdom in May. Now, want to stress here that Disney is absolutely thrilled that among all of the media companies that are out there, they were the ones that were smart enough to recognize this IP's true potential. And sometimes, Len, the numbers associated with Bluey are just staggering. I mean, it is, for the second year in a row, Len, it is the most watched show in streaming, with a massive 45.2 billion minutes viewed, annually. And this show for preschoolers is significantly outperforming acclaimed long-running series for adults like NCIS or Grey's Anatomy. And when you consider that, a Grey's Anatomy gets those kind of numbers, but it has a library of 461 hour-long episodes. And by the way, NCIS, its milestone 500th episode actually airs later this week. In fact, tomorrow, March 24th. And Bluey has gotten these sorts of numbers, Len, with just 154 episodes, which are only 10 minutes long. And they've still managed to rack up billions of viewing minutes. I mean, that's just kind of mind-blowing. Anyway, this is why if you talk with people at Disney, they will tell you the company views Bluey as the next Winnie the Pooh, which is why Disney's long-term strategy here is acquisition. And I bring this up because February 2004, that's when we learned that the Disney company, after nearly 15 years, Len, had finally acquired the Muppets for $75 million. And I want to bring up that acquisition today because, it points out how long the Disney company will doggedly pursue something when they really want to acquire it. And the other thing that's just fascinating about this, Len, is back in February of 2004, what was interesting when you talked with people at the company, it was like, well, what's the big get here? And it's like, well, I'm not going to lie. It's not Kermit or Piggy or Gonzo. It's Bear in the Big Blue House, which was a hit series on Disney Junior. And I mean, a lot of people today, I mean, I know you have a soft spot in your heart for the show due to Hannah, but a lot of people forget this thing debuted on the Disney Channel back in October of 97. It was part of their Playhouse Disney programming block, and 4 seasons were produced, a total of 118 episodes, and it ran on the Disney Channel through May of 2007. And by the way, the original run of the show is still available for viewing over on Disney Plus, and there has been a lot of talk, especially lately, Len, about rebooting the show, especially on the heels of Barney. Of all things, the big purple dinosaur has returned to children's television in October of 2024. He's got a new animated series over on Cartoon Network and Max. But today we're going to talk about a part of the Disney acquisition of the Muppets that the mouse really doesn't like to talk about how, for example, after a decade of pursuing, this asset of the Jim Henson Company. And remember, once upon a time, August of 1989, Disney announced it was going to acquire Henson for $150 million, only to have that deal fall apart in December of 1990. And this was largely because the Henson family felt that Disney's representatives had been a little too aggressive, especially, how they behaved after Jim's death in April of that same year, 1990. And this is why on the heels of that claim that Disney had been too aggressive, the mouse took a far more gentle approach when it returned to its pursuit of the Jim Henson Company. It let Jim's widow Jane, likewise his son Brian, know that Disney is still interested in acquiring the company, but on their terms, more importantly, their timetable, which is why Disney is then flabbergasted February of 2000 when they learned that the Henson Company has sold the company off to EMTV, a German-based media company, for $680 million. And Disney's... Disney's immediate reaction is, "What the? I thought we had an understanding here." And it's like,
I remember when that happened, and I was like, "That is a lot of money."
Well, and more to the point, that the Henson family's response: "Look, you previously offered us $150 million for the entire company, and that was back in '89, and that." Came with the understanding that you'd additionally get Jim Henson's creative services for the Disney Company for the next 15 years, an exclusive. Mm-hmm. And Len, by the way, that is supposedly why negotiations between Disney and Henson got so tough in the summer and fall of 1990, with Jim now gone and him unable to do new things for the company, like, for example, those 2 pilots for the Little Mermaid Islands TV show that Jim worked on prior to his death. So the Disney Company was now, it's like, look, we're going to need some compensation here for this loss in value now in the deal. Especially with Jim gone, we don't get any future TV shows or theme parks attractions. So this meant that Disney now wanted the half of Sesame Street that the Jim Henson Company had. And this actually factors into, how Disney handled Bear in the Big Blue House and by extension, Bluey. But to explain that, we'll take a moment. And speaking of which, we're going to take a moment right now for an ad, but we'll be back soon.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. Stop waiting around for the perfect candidate. Instead, use Indeed sponsored jobs to find the right people with the right skills fast. It's a simple way to make sure your listing is the first candidates see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs have 4 times more applicants than non-sponsored jobs. So go build your dream team today with Indeed. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
How many discounts does USAA Auto Insurance offer? Too many to say here. Multi-vehicle discount, safe driver discount, new vehicle discount, storage discount, legacy.
How many
discount.
discounts will you stack up? Tap the banner or visit USAA.com/auto discounts. Restrictions apply.
All right, so Len, talk to me. What do you know about Sesame Street? Hannah, a Bear in the Big Blue House kid, but did she watch Sesame Street at all, or
she didn't really? We were looking at cable more than Sesame Street, and there was a lot of Disney Channel stuff that we were watching at the time. Mm-hmm. I know that Sesame Street. Was that co-owned by Henson in Children's Television Workshop?
There we go.
And this is actually in the news now, isn't it?
Oh, yes, it is.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
And show got launched in November of 1969 after 3 years of development, an enormous hit right out of the box. And again, as Len just mentioned, co-owned by Children's Television Workshop and the Henson Company, which meant when there was a hit product associated with this program, like, say, for example, remember Tickle Me Elmo? The hot toy for the 1996 holiday season. The share of retail sales for this immense, half of that goes to Children's Television Workshop, and the other half went to the Jim Henson Company.
Wow. It's a sunny day on Sesame Street. Okay. Right.
Yeah, but this is the quiet part of the Henson Company history that even in the lean times, when a Dark Crystal or The Labyrinth or Muppet Takes Manhattan, when a movie like that would underperform at the box office in the 90s, there was always the safety cushion of the Sesame Street money, that it would keep the company afloat year in, year out. This was a revenue stream that they could rely on. And more to the point, Jim Henson himself genuinely, passionately believed in the mission of Sesame Street. They, teaching underprivileged children around the country their numbers and their colors and essential vocabulary. So this is why when Henson and Michael Eisner were talking about Disney acquiring the Muppets, Jim would insist over and over again that this deal was not for the Sesame Street Muppets, that all of those hugely popular characters were completely off the table. Disney could not touch them. And Eisner, to his credit, initially agreed with this. But again, it was only after Jim died in April of 1990s where the company is like, all the TV series we were going to get, all the films, all the theme park attractions, those aren't happening now. Yeah. And worse, Len, Jim hadn't left a will. And because the Henson Company was based in the state of New York, the estate tax bill was going to be astronomical. And if anything, the Hensons now needed that $150 million more just to keep the company afloat during this financial challenge. So this is why now the Disney lawyers are like, look, in order for this deal to go forward, some changes have to be made, that Jim's no longer here to honor the exclusive creative services part of this agreement. And Disney's going to need something of equal value to compensate for the loss of Jim Henson's creative services. And to hear the Disney lawyers talk, the only thing that was going to do that was for the company to hand over their half of Sesame Street. And again, as far as Jane Henson and the Henson kids were concerned, that was a deal breaker. In fact, Jim had supposedly assured Joan Gantz Cooney, the head of Children's Television Workshop, that Disney was just not going to get control of the Henson Company's share of the Sesame Street. And that was something that Jim and Michael personally agreed upon. And if Disney was now challenging this condition, the Henson family wanted out. And that's exactly what happens in December of 1990. They break off negotiations, and for a time, Len, this put Muppet Vision 3D and the Muppet Christmas Carol movie in severe jeopardy. But anyway, we jump ahead 5 years, 1995. Henson Company is still struggling. It's basically living from project to project. It's trying to find another TV show or a film that'll break through, connect in a big way with a mainstream audience, something along the lines of the original syndicated Muppet Show from the mid to late 70s. But again, Henson's annual share of Sesame Street-related retail sales helps to keep the company afloat. And remember, as we just mentioned, we're now just a year or so out from Tickle Me Elmo becoming a white-hot pop culture phenomenon, and that enormous wave of revenue, will certainly help in the late 90s. But now, entering this scenario is Mitchell Kriegman, who cut his teeth working on Saturday Night Live in late 70s, early 80s as a performer-writer, and he decides he wants to try his hand at cable television. His first show is for the Disney Channel. Did you ever see Masterpiece Theater?
Yeah, with George Plimpton as the host.
There we go.
Hysterical, by the way. Like, they could not have picked a better person.
No. He got it. He got what?
He got it. He understood, yeah.
Yeah, that was a success. And Masterpiece Theater runs on the Disney Channel in the mid-'80s. And as a result of the success of that series, Kriegman's invited over to Nickelodeon, where he develops some of that cable channel's early animated hits, Rugrats, Ren and Stimpy, Doug.
Yeah, those are all huge, yeah.
And then he tries his hand at live action over at Nick. And one of his biggest successes is Clarissa Explains It All with Melissa Joan Hart. Yeah, I mean, and that ran on that cable channel for 4 years and quite a success for Nickelodeon. And it's on the heels of Clarissa Explains It All that Henson comes a-calling. And Kriegman works with Henson on their 1995 holiday special, Mr. Willoughby's Christmas Tree. And that's such a fun collaboration that the Henson family turns to Mitchell and says, you got any other ideas? And Mitchell says, well, I have this idea for a show for preschoolers that built around a big bear character that I feel like is on the exact same scale as Big Bird on Sesame Street.
There you go. Yeah.
And that I'd like for this this is a character that breaks the fourth wall and is surrounded by other puppet characters, and of course this is music to the Henson's family ears. So they put together a pilot, though. To their frustration, the only outfit back then, anyway, that seems interested in Bear in the Big Blue House is Disney. And of course,
really, like CTW, Nick, they're not interested. I'm surprised at that.
Well, it's more to the effect with a puppet-based show. I mean, face it, it's a specialized set. You have to build everything 3 and 4 feet off the floor to allow for the puppeteers to be behind couches and counters and that sort of thing. It's also a performer in a full suit. With very limited vision. I mean, it's a lot of money up front, and you have to really commit. And that was the thing. Disney came in and said, absolutely, with first season, we'll do 26 episodes.
Wow. Okay.
But also, Disney had a hidden agenda here. They still eventually hope to get their hands on the Muppets, and because that acquisition remained a high priority for Disney's then CEO, Michael Eisner. And Michael felt that if Disney were working with Henson on a television series, there'd be more opportunities to reopen conversations about the acquisition. So,
sure.
All right. So as we mentioned, top of the show, or top of the feature segment here, that Bear in the Big Blue House debuts on the Disney Channel as part of their Playhouse Disney programming block, October of 1997. Almost immediately becomes a hit. And Disney, to its credit, doesn't wait. It's like, we're doing a second season, and this time around we're doing 39 episodes.
Wow. Yeah, because remember, this was running every day, every morning on Disney Channel.
Absolutely. And season 2 debuts in June of 1998. And that season does even better, which is why out ahead of a third season of Bear in the Big Blue House, which would debut on the Disney Channel July of 99, a Bear in the Big Blue House live on stage show debuted at Disney MGM Studios the month previous, June of 1999. Now, did you ever get Hannah in there for that?
Oh, yeah. I mean, she was tiny, but yeah, she was there for it, and I saw it too, like independently.
Yeah, well, and the folks at Disney, they're thrilled. Not only do they have a hit TV show involving the Muppets on the Disney Channel, but this very same character, Bear in the Big Blue House, is now showcased in a popular live stage show at their theme park down in Florida. So double prizes, and better yet, the Disney company officials are in day-to-day contact with the Henson family, which means when the time is right, they can reopen conversations about possibly acquiring the Muppets, which is something Michael really, really still wants to happen. But again, as we mentioned, February 2000, Jim Henson Company reveals it's being purchased by EMTV, and again, that's a German-based media company for $680 million. And again, as I mentioned, Mouse House people are, I thought we had an understanding.
Yeah.
And again, it's like, look,
that's an astounding amount of money for at the time. Like I remember, like I said before, like I couldn't believe it.
Yeah, and also not to belabor the point here, but Disney was told by the Henson family, and look, they gave us that money and they told us they'd leave Sesame Street alone. Now, just to be clear here, Len, not every member of the Henson family is thrilled by this proposition. In fact, Jim's youngest, Heather Henson, is especially against the acquisition, which, by the way, was supposed to be a straight stock swap with very little cash involved.
Yeah, so remember, guys, we're in the peak of the .com bubble here.
We are. So Heather...
So Heather's the smart one.
Well, that's the thing. She almost derails the whole acquisition by insisting that for her share of the company, she needs to be paid in cash up front, not stock, cash. So EMTV has to go out and meet with some banks and arrange for over $100 million in cash to be transferred to Heather Henson's account, which, as Len just pointed out, turned out to be a very smart move on the part of Jim's daughter, because just 1 year later, shares of stock in EMTV have lost 95% of their value.
Wow.
And these same Germans who had previously told the Henson family that they would leave Sesame Street alone are now talking about, selling off the Henson family or the Henson Company's share in this acclaimed television show, just in an effort to keep EMTV afloat.
Right. So the 680 million.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
And so now it's worth 34 million. Okay.
Yeah. And now picture this. You're Disney. You're standing at the outside looking in as all this is going down. And to be honest, executives don't know quite what to do here because this is an opportunity to actually acquire the Muppets at, let's be honest here, Len, fire sale prices.
I mean, if the whole company is now worth $34 million to EMTV.
Yeah.
That wouldn't even, you wouldn't even have to explain that to shareholders. You just spend that money. Like that's not even a significant financial transaction at Disney scale. Yeah. Okay.
All right. But at the same time, they're kind of deer in the headlight. Do we move now or do we wait to see if the price goes lower?
This is the thing that kills me. Like you're at a 95% discount. Stop trying to optimize. Just that's good enough, right?
I get that. And the other thing, the other pressing factor here is that Bear in the Big Blue House has turned into a cash cow for the company. I mean, the Disney stores around the country are moving a mountain of Bear in the Big Blue House plush. They've been doing so for 4 years at this point. And so what's the smart play here? I mean, do you forget the classic Muppet characters and just offer EMTV a pile of cash for Bear in the Big Blue House, which would then give Disney its own Sesame Street-like show without having to deal, with the issue of, half of Sesame Street is still owned by Children's Television Workshop. And it was a very interesting time for both executives of the Walt Disney Company as well as members of the Jim Henson family, who, by the way, Len, are now themselves scrambling to raise as much money as possible to try to buy back.
Oh, so EMTV is trying to sell the Muppets. Mm-hmm. The Henson family is trying to buy the Muppets. Disney's interested in buying. Wow, okay. It's what we call a cliffhanger in podcast terminology, Jim.
There we go. And toward that end, we will continue the story next week about how Disney's experience in 2003, 2004, when it came to finally acquiring the Muppets and Bear in the Big Blue House, actually color the company's dealings today with the folks who make Bluey.
Oh, absolutely. It's the same scenario all over again. Yeah, they want. I mean, Disney's noted for wanting control over everything all the time, right? So partnerships give them the willies.
There we go. But again, we'll continue the story next week. But again, the Bear in the Big Blue House. Watch that space. We may see a certain character make a return to Disney Plus or
don't tease me, Jim.
There we go.
Don't tease me.
Okay.
The funny thing is like there are a couple of shows that Hannah and I watched when she was growing up, where I don't understand why we didn't get a reboot. Like Bear in the Big Blue House. Why are we not doing version 2.0 of that? Like you saw the Hannah Montana 20th anniversary special that's coming out this week, right? Yeah. Super excited for that. Yeah.
What's interesting is, ironically enough, it may be Mitchell Kriegman himself who is preventing this from happening, because he's this kind of weird individual that he has some integrity. It's like, and I don't know quite, he's teaching out in LA now rather than being a key creative. But yeah.
I love it. I love it that Disney has to deal with the granola eating hippies, and I say that with all kinds of affection, at Children's Television Workshop.
Yeah.
And the do-gooder Mitchell, because they're like, we don't know how to talk to these people. What even do they want if not money, fame, and fortune? Like, well, I don't get it. Like,
there we go.
What language do we even speak? Yeah. The other thing that kills me, so we're going to spin off here and talk about Resurrections. You see Firefly's coming back.
Yeah, but
super excited for that.
Absolutely, but as an animated series. Conversely, though, just in the you must have also been following what's been going on with Buffy.
Literally the next thing I was going to talk about.
Yeah, that
How in the name of God's green earth do you get Sarah Michelle Gellar on board for a Buffy reboot, and then Hulu turn it down. What?
Yeah, I mean,
what? Give me the scenario in which you get 2 acclaimed writers plus Sarah Michelle Gellar for a reboot of one of the most important TV series of all time, and Hulu's like, nah. Like, what?
Well, that tells you a lot about the television space right now. Just sort of, but yeah, that it's just such a fascinating time, and to watch a Nathan Fillion who, same thing, was looking at reviving a show that he genuinely enjoyed working on with friends that he's had for a long time, and it's just sort of like, but you look at that and look at that he realized financially we need to go animated, whereas Buffy, with Chloe Zhao, the acclaimed director, they went live action, and it just, for some odd reason, the financials just didn't make sense to Disney and Fox Television, and here we are. So
amazing. Yeah, it was. I read that. I actually read the entire. It was Variety did the entire blow by blow of what happened with the Buffy reboot, and I was like, the financials must have just been astronomical. That's the only thing I can think of, because you can work through the creative stuff, right? You can. I don't see it. Yeah, I don't know. I wonder if there's like test footage of it.
Oh, I would imagine. Give it 3 weeks, Len, and something will come wandering up.
Fair. Yeah, can't believe. All right, I'm super excited to hear about the rest of Bear in the Big Blue House, because, like I said, that was one of my favorite shows. To watch with Hannah growing up, and the songs were great, the characters were great, the otters were hysterical. I actually started watching this last year. I was late last year, I was like, let me go back and watch the first couple episodes just to see what it was like. And it still holds up, Jim. It's as a great kids show. It's fantastic.
Oh, I'd love to hear that.
All right, folks, that's going to do it for our show today. You can help support the show by subscribing over to patreon.com/JimHillMedia, where our latest exclusive show is on Rock and Roller Coaster's Last Ride, and there's a link in the show notes. Friend of the show, Jim Schull, has a YouTube channel called Disney Journey, where he regularly releases videos about the Disney parks produced from his unique perspective as a former Disney Imagineer. In his most recent episode, Jim talks about Disneyland's hidden treasures and surprises. There's also a link in the show notes. You can find more of Jim at jimhillmedia.com and more of me, Len, at touringplans.com. Also, check out The Case 4 with Chris Cox, a new podcast where Chris, Jim, and I debate one theme park topic at a time, and you guys get to vote on who's right. We're produced spectacularly by Eric Hersey and David Gray, playing the roles of Elmer Fudd and Bugs Bunny in What's Opera Doc and The Rabbit of Seville at the Glimmerglass Opera Festival, running July 10th through August 17th at the Alice Bush Opera Theater. That's on State Highway 80 in beautiful downtown Cooperstown, New York. While Eric and Dave are doing that, please go onto iTunes and rate our show and tell us what you'd like to hear next. For Jim, this is Len. We will see you on the next show.
I think the sun is just about to rise. Oh, when the day begins, I look outside my window. I see the sun has come to start the morning.
Why, dear my friend, it's you. I'm so glad to see you too. I've traveled around the whole wide world to say good morning, good morning, good morning from the sun. Good morning,
good morning,
good morning,
good morning,
good morning
to everyone. Oh, Ray, it's so good to see you.
Likewise, dear.